Hello, this is the Demographics Decoded podcast with me, demographer Simon Küstenmacher.
And me, Michael Yardney, property and wealth creation expert. And this is the podcast where we unveil the trends shaping our future. In this episode, we're thrilled to welcome Simon Bowen as a guest. He's a true Renaissance thinker and a coach to some of the most successful business leaders and political and social leaders around the world. Now, I know Simon well. He's got a unique ability to see the big picture while understanding the intricate details that drive success in today's rapidly changing business landscape. And as artificial intelligence continues to revolutionise industries, it's clear the way we're going to run our businesses is on the brink of a massive transformation. So today, Simon Küstenmacher and I'd like to discuss how businesses need to evolve in leadership structures to stay competitive and why differentiation is more crucial than ever in an AI-driven world. So whether you're a seasoned business leader or just starting out, if you're an entrepreneur or an investor, I think the conversation we're going to have is going to give you some invaluable insights to navigate the future with confidence. Hi, Simon, and hello, Simon.
Hello, Michael, and hello, Simon. It's good to be here with you.
Now, Simon Küstenmacher, we're running, this is the first time we're having a guest on the show, but boy, the show has done really, really well. The podcast and the videos has exceeded our expectation. I think we're hitting the mark, helping people understand what their future holds.
Exactly. I think, as you, I was quite a bit surprised how nice this actually took off. And now we figured we are widening our interest a bit by taking in the smartest people that we have in our address book.
That's right. Well, Simon is one of the smartest people, and I'm part of your international mastermind group, Simon Bowen, and I love listening to your new podcast, The Wisdom of ... where you speak a lot about the pressure the world's feeling for better leadership. And I know you feel we must have a conversation about the renaissance of wisdom. You say we've got a desperate need for better leaders. Why do you say that, Simon Bowen?
Well, let me ask you how you think we're doing politically, socially, economically, militarily around the world right now, and whether you feel like we're being led into one of the best periods in time in human history, or into a pathway that maybe we don't want to be going into. And what sits behind all of that is the quality of the leadership that people subscribe the decision making to. So the vast majority of people subscribe their decision-making to a small number of people that we happen to call leaders. And we do that through elections or appointments or whatever. And, when people are feeling a lot of pressure, what we're probably experiencing is a sense of frustration. So there's two big forces in the world. Military force. During the Cold War, we had Russia and the US, and then the USSR disbanded, and it was really a uni monopoly militarily. The US is still the only country that has the military power to go anywhere in the world. Then China has a growing navy, so there are other military powers in play. The second big force in the world is economic. So China's really tackled the world through economic pathways and trade agreements and everything else, which makes military conflict a bit more tricky. But there is a third force in the world today, which is digital. And the digital force, we used to talk about nature versus nurture. Humans are a product of nature versus nurture. I begin to wonder today if humans are a product of nature versus nurture versus technology. Would riots occur like January 6th on the Capitol, or what's happening in the UK without social media, right? Would the hashtag movements have occurred without social media? There's an argument that the Ukraine couldn't have sustained more than a few weeks in that conflict when the internet went down had they not been offered low altitude internet solutions with things like Starlink. So there are leaders of technology countries, if you like. Facebook is one of the biggest countries in the world now, that are shaping the world. So we subscribe a lot of decision making to a small number of people. And do we just hope that they're being good stewards of that responsibility? Or do more people need to stand up and say, we actually require you to think more deeply and more profoundly and with greater consideration because of the authority you hold militarily, economically, or digitally. It's a big, complex conversation, Michael. And I think one of the things I really just want to do is challenge people to be really aware and start really testing where you give that decision-making authority to, and then what you require of people with that.
So, but when you mention those sovereign risks and all those big political risks, would you say that AI is or technology per se is a larger risk than those trends?
Simon, Google has had a goal to put all the world's information in the hands of people instantly. And there's this thing called the singularity, which is what would happen when AI can outthink humans, and when all the world's information is available instantly to everyone. Now think about what happens in a negotiation, say over a property. Someone wants to buy a property, there's a vendor, there's a buyer, there's finance and everything else. But how does that negotiation run if everybody has all the information related to that instantly in their head? What happens then? This is the singularity. And then what happens if that AI is really partially driving that deal? So AI isn't just ChatGPT. In fact, AI's greatest presence in the world right now is in fact in military applications, medical applications, robotics, and other areas that most people are not even actually thinking about. But there's a problem with AI. We still haven't figured out how to give it common sense. And so, there was that joke, which wasn't a joke because a journalist actually did it. It asked Chat how to solve the climate problem, and Chat's answer was get rid of the humans. Right now, there's some common sense required before you give that answer. So, and the other thing, so there's a below the AI line, set of things that AI can do really well. AI is great at concepts and construct. It can put constructs together very well, and it can create content very well. And so the programming and coding on bots, and I'm not a technology expert, but I spend a lot of time in these conversations with a lot of people. So it can do all of that below the line very, very well. But what is above the line? Well, context is above the line because context drives common sense. And the problem common sense is often not common is because most people are operating without context, right? Why should we do this? Why does it matter? But then there's some other interesting things that AI does not have yet. One of those is conscience and compassion and concern and care.
All the C's, Simon. Very impressive, your alliteration.
Yes. If we can't equip it with those things, shouldn't we be careful about what we're handing over to it? Right? Because at the moment, it doesn't necessarily care if it's got the right answer. It just wants to create an answer. And so, we're still a way off saying AI can outthink humans. But the other bigger question is, what is the role of humans going forward? And will there be a merge? So, I think I was talking to an attorney from a legal firm that has started to specialize in AI-driven lawsuits. And one of the things that they said, because, lawyers now are not writing contracts. Why would you? Go to ChatGPT. But one of the things that this attorney was saying was every single company in the world now should have an AI policy. You must have an AI policy, and it must address commercial confidentiality. What happens if you put a client's details into open ChatGPT and it ends up in the public large language model? That actually happened. Someone in Samsung put proprietary programming into ChatGPT early in the piece to get it to work on the program, and that proprietary programming went into the public large language model. So this core IP, was lost to open source. And a key part of that AI policy should be everything needs to be checked by a human before it goes to the marketplace, because humans sue humans. Humans don't sue technology. Humans hold humans accountable. Humans judge humans. They don't judge the tech. They don't judge the platforms. They judge the humans that are running them, the humans that design them, the humans that built them. And conflict is a human thing, as is collaboration. And so there is this interesting bridge, right, between the two. It's a new world. We've got to figure it out.
Now, Simon, I know that we also spoke in our mastermind group that you were concerned there's even a bigger risk to Australia, to the business, to the world, more than AI. Do you want to share those with us?
Well, I had the great privilege. I've worked with a lot of senior military leaders in our consulting business over a 25-year period. I've had the great privilege of interviewing 2 retired major generals from the Australian military. One of them, Gus McLaughlin, led our 35,000 strong armed forces into Afghanistan. I always find military leaders to be quite humble people who, who've studied history. They care about a lot of things. Generally speaking, I've found them to be good people, to be honest. But they're in this job that sees them in a war zone where people are fighting and people will die. And Gus was in charge of the modernisation of the Australian Army, particularly cyber kind of security and technology. Then he also led our field forces into Afghanistan. And we were talking about AI and risk. And, I said, so Gus, how do businesses prepare themselves for, the risks of the future? And AI was what I was thinking. And he said, well, AI, for a start, climate change will probably take us out before AI does. Like if we don't get control of the carbon issue, we're at 90% of the carbon budget in the atmosphere now. So, climate change may do us more harm than AI in a shorter time frame. Put that aside. What we've seen is almost a deglobalization. We've come to expect, because of globalization and decades of relative peace, we've come to expect that shipping worldwide just happens. We've come to expect that the internet is just a thing that will always be there. Now, COVID certainly slowed down shipping for a bit, but we all knew that it was going to end, and then supply lines would come back up again, right? But, Gus was making the point, if we went into a global conflict, a country like Australia is an island, and our shipping channels could be cut off easily and quickly because we are surrounded by ports on all sides that are not necessarily held by nations that we have direct agreements with. And a bad actor could easily cut off shipping supply. And I think his point is fascinating. The world shouldn't expect that global shipping channels are an automatic thing that always exist. Who would have thought that the Gazprom pipeline would be severed and blown up as a part of the Ukraine war? And what would happen if the internet went down? I already spoke about where Ukraine would be if Elon Musk and others hadn't come in with Starlink and other low altitude communication solutions. We created an optic fibre network in Australia called the NBN. And at the time, everyone was complaining about why we're spending $40 billion instead of just giving everyone 5G. And I'd ask people to think about why we would want a physical infrastructure of communication right around the country. Just give that a thought for a second. And so, we have come to expect, Michael, so many things to just exist. And businesses need to prepare themselves. So if you run a global business, for example, and the internet is a key part of that, and it went down for an extended period of time, what's your plan B, right? How are you going to serve customers or communicate or market or whatever? If you run a business that has some level of import or export that requires shipping, now you had that experience with COVID. So what did you learn out of that? Would be Gus's comment. And what's your plan B? And, then of course there's, once your mind starts working that way, Michael, AI isn't the only thing you're going to be thinking about. Now, this isn't being maudlin. This is about being responsible leaders and thinking about what we do to prepare for multiple eventualities, right? To sustain good business and to sustain a country, for example.
Simon, as a Renaissance thinker and coach, how do you see that AI will be reshaping the way that businesses that you're working with will change? How will they adopt in the next decade?
Well, someone said to me, a futurist said to me about 3 months ago, if you're not using ChatGPT every single day, you're already behind. And the best thing you can do right now is use ChatGPT every single day. Make it a normal part of your workflow. I think that gives rise to an interesting observation, Simon, about what, let's talk about business and adoption, right? Adoption of anything new requires something very fundamental and simple. And that is that the price paid for not doing it is greater than the price paid for doing it. So if adopting a new piece of technology is harder than actually doing nothing, then I will do nothing, right? But what's happening as AI emerges is these things are becoming easier and easier to use. And so, I think business needs to think, and so what's one of the consequences of that is, if you look into a business, this has happened in our business, I suspect it's happening in yours, I know it's happening in lots and lots of businesses that we're working with. When the business starts to do an audit of what AI solutions people are using in the business, people have found, oh, that app works, and they start using a free version, and they're producing work using that free version, but the business has no knowledge that that app's being used, right? But the business is fully accountable for what gets put out into the marketplace. So whether that could be a video making app or whatever, or an image producing app, obviously chat, other kinds of tools, research tools. I think businesses cannot afford to ignore AI, but businesses need to really think about what are the business critical areas of work where AI can provide the greatest enhancement, because you can suffer a lot of productivity distraction in a business with people trying to figure out how to use new things. So the only thing that counterbalances that idea of, if the difficulty of adoption is greater than the difficulty of not adopting, people won't adopt, right? What counterbalances that, though, is curiosity. When people just find something cool, they'll spend ages playing with it, and you can have a lot of productivity loss. So I think one of the things that businesses need to think about is controlled adoption. What are the business critical workflows where we know with certainty AI will give us significant productivity boosts? And then how do we control the adoption of the apps that we want in that space? So for example, there are video apps now. We use one that can take a video of me speaking in English and convert it to me speaking in Spanish, including changing the way my mouth moves. Well, we should use that if we want a video of me doing training in Spanish, right? That same program allows us to look at the transcript of the video. I can go in and take a section of that transcript, physically type in a change, and then it produces the video with me saying the new thing. So video editing has completely changed, right? All of a sudden, video editing doesn't need all of the editing that we used to do. So where there's a lot of video content produced, a company should look at that and go, that's a critical workflow. Let's figure out how to use it. But I think controlled adoption, Simon, I think companies really need to think about controlled adoption of AI as opposed to curiosity adoption. Oh, there's this cool thing I heard about at a conference. We should use that. For what purpose? For what productivity gain? For what output? Then the other extension, though, is about businesses adopting AI, is do think about the impact on your people. We have remote work these days, a lot of work from home, but your company is still people. And technology has no loyalty. People do. I think it's still true that the only true competitive advantage you have in a business that no one else can copy is your people. If you have a phenomenal team with a great culture, think about sport, right? In world soccer, the team that has Messi has an advantage, right? But if he goes to another team where the culture is not strong and people don't form around him and he doesn't have the coverage that he needs or he doesn't have the support that he needs, he won't perform at the same level. So another team can steal him by paying him more, but they can't copy him when he's operating in the highest performance environment that a culture can create. And so I still think business leaders absolutely have to think about what is the impact of all of this on our people. And so there's this line, the technology line lifts the level at which basic human contribution lives. So once upon a time, human labor was worth a lot of money. Now it's not worth so much. And so the AI line has shifted the level where, say, the construct of a contract is not as valuable. So what's the next level we shift those humans to? So here's one of the biggest lessons, I think. Companies that really lean in on AI have to have controlled adoption, not curiosity adoption. You really have to consider what that means for your people, and the focus on developing and growing your people to the next level of their highest contribution absolutely must be a priority. You can no longer just have someone sitting there for a few years doing the same job, because AI will take it. They'll then wonder where they're going. Everyone else is watching you going, you didn't do anything for those people. That means the same would apply to us. But how do we grow people, take them to the next level? It's, and we're all guessing the future to some extent, aren't we?
Absolutely. And one of my main readings of the future is from a demographic perspective, we're running out of workers. That's one of the big challenges, and therefore AI, of course, is very welcome. People are very curious, if not desperate, to utilize AI. They figure it out as they do things. That we're now in this insane Wild West period of artificial intelligence, because we always say in forecasting that regulation follows innovation, and something like AI will be outrageously difficult to regulate. So it'll easily take a decade plus. And we have this gang-ho, everything goes period. And yeah, businesses better be careful in that difficult time to control how you utilize a tool that is unknown, that is unregulated. The legal frameworks are a bit iffy, if not completely unknown at the time. So I really take your point of curiosity is kind of helpful, but you want to make sure to put the guardrails around it.
Well, you have a way of bringing demographics to life, and which is rare. And I remember you talking about we don't have enough people working, like we don't have enough people for the working roles we'll need, right? And AI is a great solution for that, but companies are going to have to self-regulate. Companies are going to have to make some... I think one of the things we've learnt over the last 20 years is that society is very willing to retrospectively prosecute people for things they did 20 years ago. Right? And I don't think that's going away. So company leadership and companies need to, the reason I'm saying controlled adoption, need to put AI to work to cover those critical workflows where you can't get people, but you need to have a 20-year out view on how will this be judged 20 years down the track. So controlled adoption doesn't mean how am I going to be judged today? How will this be judged 20 years down the track, when people don't have the intimacy of the decisions and the context of the Wild West that we're in right now, right? Imagine, someone, when the internet came alive and Google became available, or even when the social media platforms were first being built, MySpace for kids, it was wide open. There was no security, kids were on there. How would they be judged today, right? And so it pretty quickly sorted out its security, but how would this be judged 20 years down the track? And I think you're right. When you talked about that, my eyes lit up because I thought, and my ears pricked up, because I think that's super interesting. Like maybe our first thought when we've got a critical workflow or role shouldn't be who could I hire? The old adage of who, not how. Who could I hire? Maybe the first thought should be, what AI could I use in a controlled way? And then if I can't solve it with that, then who do I hire, right? But you've got to have an AI person in your business. You've got to have someone in your business that understands this stuff. I think, increasingly today, or have someone available who understands this stuff.
Yeah, and you want to make sure that you deconstruct your workflows and you understand what part of a person's job could we hand over to AI. And this will not lead to hordes of angry, unemployed masses on the streets. It gives you a fighting chance to operate your business smarter. And I think ultimately this will be a gift for workers, wouldn't it? Because you take what kind of tasks do you take away from the workers? It will be repetitive technical tasks first, and so you free up workers to do more interpersonal stuff, which tends to be more enjoyable. I'm sorry to all the introverts here, but ultimately, even if you are the most introverted person, you want to do a bit more complex work. You want to be work that is a bit, there's a bit variety in the mix rather than just doing the same stupid tasks again and again because somehow the computer didn't learn from you what you wanted to do.
Well, there are six primary human drivers or needs. One of them is the need for certainty, but another one is the need for variety. We're a mixed up creature. We don't want to do the same things day after day, but we also want certainty. So, certainty and variety don't really walk hand in hand. But, Simon, what if workflows and processes became a thing of the past because AI just made them unnecessary? Because that's possible. If a company is trying to map core workflows, get systems in place, should you map your systems these days, or should you just go to AI and say, hey, give me a world-class system for payroll. Give me a world-class workflow for payroll. And it will spit one out. And the question is, should you just use that or should you make up your own? Now, humans hate using things that they didn't invent. And so they'll tweak it. The large finance solutions like SAP and others have been built to work, but every company wants to make their own modifications, right? Because people hate using something they didn't kind of influence or help invent. But what if workflows became a thing of the past? What if we didn't have to make them anymore? What if you guys sat down and said, map the perfect property acquisition process in northwestern Queensland and give me the flowchart for that, and it would probably spit it out in about 5 minutes. And
then it's take 5 minutes, would it, Simon?
No.
But you've given me some great ideas to think about. Simon Kirstenmacher, we've spoken about the different demographic tribes, the groups, the Gen Zs, the millennials, the baby boomers. They're all still currently in the workplace. Have you had to think about how AI could either exacerbate or mitigate the generational tensions, because they all think differently and they all want different stuff out of their workplace?
Most certainly, and the different generations will view all of the technology through their own lens, and some will be faster in taking them up than others. And traditionally speaking, we say that younger people take up technology at a faster rate than older generations. And so we are in plenty of organizations at the moment where the young workforce, I'm particularly talking about the consulting world, where I know a lot of people, that are just using AI left, right, and center, and they're not saying anything to their boss. This is just something that they can spit out more work faster, be done quicker. It's just a way to look better because your output is better without saying what you've done. It's essentially still cheating to a degree, whereas that wouldn't need to be done. People don't care how you do stuff as long as the results are good. But I think currently this is still being used as a cheat code of the younger generations to impress the older bosses who kind of turned their back towards technology already.
Now, I've got a couple more questions to ask you, Simon Bowen, but before we do, I know you have helped my business, Metropole, a lot. You've built models for us. Could you just quickly tell listeners of this show what you do and how they can find you if they want to use you and share the same business coach I do?
Sure. So you win in the marketplace, not by having the best product. You win in the marketplace by positioning more effectively than everybody else, meaning how you market. And what that does is it causes people to be interested to talk to you before you have any direct contact with them. And then the next step is communication, which is sales. And that requires you to communicate your deep genius to the marketplace before they get to experience it. They've got to make a decision before they actually get your product or service. So communication drives sales, and then you've got to deliver to such a high level that your reputation builds as a result. And so, Michael, one of the things that we started to realize was that people that bring complex products and services to the market, typically at a higher ticket price, find themselves commoditized really, really quickly. They've brought some level of uncommon wisdom or unique genius to the marketplace. Years ago it was favorable and positive, but then the rest of the market jumped in. They've become wildly commoditized.
That'll happen even more so quicker now with AI, won't it, Simon?
Of course. And this commoditization, so two things happen. Internal dilution occurs inside the company itself. They start diluting their own language, and as the original source of genius, often the founder, moves further into the history of the company becomes more and more commoditized internally, and then of course the external market commoditizes it. Then the other forces in play, Michael, was we have an overuse of words in how we market and sell. We write copy, we write words for people to read. And 83% of the information from the world around us comes in through our optic nerve. And then people want structure. They can't buy your intuition. And so, someone's got intuitive genius, really unique insights they bring to the market, they've turned into a product. Let's call it software. The marketplace looks at the software and says, oh, software's worth $39 a month, that's the most I'll pay. And yet there's this deep intuitive genius underneath it. So what we do, Michael, is we turn this core organizational genius into a powerful visual model called the genius model. We can capture the entire genius of a company in a single model that takes about 7 minutes to explain. So for example, if you're a software company with enterprise sales, instead of doing the product demo, you should say to your clients, anyone that creates a platform should be able to show you their design model. Here's ours. And walk through the genius model that informed the software. Now all of a sudden you just completely repositioning the marketplace and told that customer they should be expecting other people to have a design model. So we capture complex things inside these visual models they can be seen, they have a structure and an organization to them, and intuitive genius becomes codified and organized genius. So you sell what is genius about the company before you sell the products and services.
Well, I'll leave a link in the show notes to the models method as well as to your great new podcast. But let's go through a couple more questions because this is a fascinating topic and probably everything we're saying today is going to be very much out of date in a year or two anyway. That's just the way technology works. And in fact, I'm not sure exactly when this show is going to go live, but it's going to be around the time that the next iPhone is coming out. And there's a lot of thought about the next iPhone going to have AI built into it. It's going to be there in your hand all the time on your smartphone. What advice would you be giving to business owners who are not tech savvy? Because a lot of them are already in the Gen X or baby boomer generation. And as Simon Kirstenmacher said, they're maybe not as quick on the uptake.
Yeah, tough question, right? So, and I think we see changes as the generations come through. Simon said they have different needs. Gen Z now, a very common thing amongst Gen Z employers, bosses, is what they call the personality hire. They're hiring people for their personality, not for their skill sets. They're hiring people who bring a vibe to the company, right? They're assuming they already know how to use AI, and they're assuming they already have a level of skill because they're Gen Z bosses hiring them. And so, whereas a baby boomer business owner would probably hire on the basis of show me your CV, who have you worked for, what skills have you got, and so they're completely different perspectives. So we're talking about generational gaps, Michael. What does an older person who's not kind of kept up with technology, what are they to do? Like the glib answer would be, well, catch up. That we are at a point where you can't just say, I don't like that tech stuff and I'm going to avoid it. If my 88-year-old mother learned how to use Zoom during COVID and is very capable on it and uses emojis in Facebook and messages, then anyone can catch up, right? Now, she's still rings me every now and again and says something's not working on the iPad. And when I say, well, just follow what I do, and she jumps a couple of steps ahead, all of that. But she has acquired a level of technology familiarity. So that's the first step. But honestly, Michael, if it's already gone past you, I think you have to face the reality that you have to hire people in your business who can represent that level of knowledge for you, and then figure out how, prompt engineering is a new job almost, that you can create great prompts for AI. So here's a thought bubble. Maybe older leaders who haven't kept up and don't think they can catch up have to become better prompt engineers, but they're coming up with prompts for humans who do have the expertise. So hire people with the expertise, or have contractors with the expertise, or have advisors with the expertise, but you've got to learn how to write the right prompt to get the output from them when you ask them the question. So you've got to learn to ask more discerning questions of people with expertise, including, there's a really important kind of question that people forget to ask all the time. So there's context questions. Why would I need to do this? Why is this important? There's context questions. Okay, so what exactly are we talking about here? What's the big picture? There's content questions. Okay, well, how's that going to work? Lay out the steps for me. Or what platform do we need to use, etc., etc. But what most people forget to ask are the contrast questions. What if we don't do it? What if we do it wrong? What are the risks that we're not seeing, that no one's talking about? And we all now need to be prompt engineers, whether we're using digital AI or human AI, because there's still this thing called human AI contained inside humans. It's not artificial, though.
As you were discussing that, Simon, I realised this is not new. My parents had to learn how to use a remote control on a television. Now, the older generation will know what I'm talking about. When my father had to learn that the VCR could actually record Channel 9 while he was watching Channel 7. He could not get his head around that. It didn't make sense to him. But then they had to learn how to use computers and Zoom and other things. So this is just the next iteration of what's gone on for generations.
And those old things had cords on them, Michael, between the TV and the VCR to the remote, remember? It was a long cord with a box on the end. My father turned on his
I
first
used to be
computer.
the remote. He made me get up to change the channel.
Well, my father turned on his first computer and learned how to use it at 65, and then was building spreadsheets and everything else. But there's two kinds of AI. There's artificial intelligence, sitting inside platforms and tools and robotics and everything else. And you need to be able to write great prompts for that. And then there's actual intelligence, which sits inside humans. They're both forms of AI, and leaders need to be able to create great prompts for humans. And so if you haven't kept up, or you don't want to, actually, that's an act of choice. But you've got to have people around you that you can go to go, I've got a bunch of questions for you, and don't forget the contrast questions.
Simon Bowen, thank you very much. I think you've opened our eyes, and you've probably caused more questions than we've answered, but that's just what's happening at a stage like this. So for people who are watching this on YouTube or listening to this, if you don't currently subscribe to Demographics Decoded, just stop for a sec before we just do the last couple of minutes of this show and subscribe, so that once a week you get the wisdom of Simon Kirstenmacher and occasional guests like we've got Simon Bowen today. And we'd love to show you, unveil the trends that are going to be shaping your future. And boy, this has really been one of them, hasn't it, Simon Kirstenmacher?
Totally. So AI, obviously, everyone is talking about. And Simon, I really enjoyed hearing from someone who works with the top leaders who are wrestling with the exact same questions all the time. So thank you very much for giving us the inside scoop today.
Oh, and in support of the focus on demographics, the greatest variable in the business world today is still the human. And so the more you can understand about demographics and trends and generations and humans and how they think and what they like, the more power you have. The greatest variable in business today is still the human. And, leaders need to understand humans more than ever. And so, the podcast here is, I think, critical.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Absolute pleasure.
This Demographics Decoded podcast was brought to you by Metropole Property Strategists. We provide a complete range of services to help our clients safely create intergenerational wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you're looking to buy an investment property or your next home, why not have a discovery chat with one of our wealth strategists? Go to metropole.com.au and explore your options. You'll find we're much more than just another buyer's agent. We provide a complete range of services, including property and wealth advisory, home buying, buyer's agency, property management, renovations, and development management services. The team will help you with frameworks that I've fine-tuned over 5 decades, and we've been helping clients with for over 25 years. We're big enough to tip the scales in your favour, but still small enough to care. You can follow me on social media, but I suggest you also follow Simon Kirstmacher. You'll find him regularly posting on all the social media platforms. I'll include links in the show notes. And thanks for spending the last little while with Simon and me. I hope you got some benefit from the show. And if you did, and you know somebody else who'd also benefit, please tell them about the Demographics Decoded podcast. There's a share button on every podcast app. You'll be doing them a favour. I hope you will anyway, and you're definitely going to be doing us a favour, helping us in our quest to make as many people as possible aware of the demographic changes that are going to shape their future. And of course, any of the discussion we had today was not personal advice about your future, but just general information to help inform.